Call to order this meeting. It's been a while, so do we say who's here or do we, I forget, it's been so long. Okay. All right. So our public comment, okay, approval of minutes from December of last year. Wow. Anyone have any questions or wish to approve those minutes?
I'll approve them.
And everyone else is muted. I'll second it.
I was just reviewing it.
Okay. That sound all good? Okay. All right, so the Animal Control Agency report.
Give me a second. Let me pop this up real quick.
Okay.
All righty. Now, not so good at bouncing off the same screen. So just to go over everything from January 1st up to date. So the first thing we'll look at here is going to be our incoming shelter statistics. That email that was sent out, that should be the first attachment to it. So, you know, we'll see that we had 607 dogs or adult dogs come into the facility since January 1st. And 49 juvenile dogs, 682 adult felines, 826 juvenile felines, and excuse me, yep. And now we're on birds. We had 6 birds, 2 ferrets, 24 fowl, 1 goat, 44 guinea pigs, 1 pig, 38 rabbits, 6 reptiles, and 4 rodents for the grand total of 2,290 animals. In from the city of Reading. There's a further breakdown with the animals year to date. And then with Reading services associated with those animals is broken down as well. I don't have the report and I can pop that up in just a moment for activity that has been generated through our department as an animal control enforcement as well. If you give me a second, let me just dig that one up. Apologize, I didn't have it up at that moment.
Yeah, and the services report is not the animals that are coming into our facility. So those numbers we're now tracking, like what we're trying to do for the community when they need help. And whether that's regular spay neuter, you know, stuff or emergency medical care that they can't afford at another office, or especially when you're looking at after hours stuff. Like we don't do after hours stuff, but that's where a lot of those calls come from because the cost is so prohibitive. So we're now tracking the services that we do. And obviously we tend to do that with the contracted municipalities, like they have access to these things over uncontracted municipalities. We'll help everybody, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what other stuff we're doing as an organization other than noses in.
And then on my end, just to circle back on our enforcement aspect to everything, we have a record of 622 total cases that required activity. So I can send out a breakdown and start doing that on a more regular basis, but activity, just to redefine that again, is going to be anything from an officer going out to pick up a stray to doing enforcement of local ordinances or state laws and assisting police departments and other authoritative agencies within the city for any animal related incidents. So again, we're at 622 of those individual incidents.
Questions? Permit updates.
So I will say that I'm a little confused with the permit updates. So for instance, with 732 Thorn Street, if I'm correct, this was pertaining to chickens inside of the city, and we made a directive that this individual would pass in the event that he vacated his property of roosters, which had since been satisfied. And I feel like that was over what? Several months now that's been satisfied. And I believe last meeting we had, we approved that.
Yeah, that would have been back in August.
Okay.
It's like August is when we confirmed that the roosters were gone.
And I just want to state, me and Savannah are in the same room, separate computers, so I'm sorry if there's a little delay on one end or the other.
I will then follow up with our zoning office to see if they've followed through with what they need on that end then.
Okay. So maybe that's why we're still waiting. Okay. Might be pending. Anyway, all right, what are we at? 2329 High Street, is that what it was?
Those I left on there just to let everyone know that they did get approval from zoning, both of those High Street addresses, so those are done.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
But I wanted to give everyone that update.
Thank you. And Pine Street?
Do we know, is any application, I'm assuming it's gonna be zoning or public works are gonna have to answer this question, but citations have been issued for that property through our department. She was advised to issue, and I think the citations are what, pertaining to vaccines?
Probably.
Yeah, it looks like they're for vaccinations of those animals. And she was advised to issue a permit, but we haven't gotten any follow-up on that end. We're still awaiting the court hearing for the citations that have been issued. And it looks like we have a record of 10 canines inside of that house.
Yeah, I checked with our property maintenance office when I scheduled this appointment, and there are no new pending 6 or more applications.
Right. Well, not great, but thank you for the update.
So then will they issue, I'm not muted, I'm just gonna, can you guys hear me if I'm talking through Hayden's computer?
Yeah,
Okay, so then, it's like previously Ed would issue an NOV for that. Is that something that we are gonna do then instead, or are they gonna continue to do that? For a violation of having no permit? Cause Ed's not here anymore, right? Did Ed move to a different department?
He did, yes, and I invited the person who was going to be taking over, but he's not in the meeting, so I'll follow up with him in the office tomorrow.
Yeah, and then maybe what
Okay.
we'll do on our end as well, since we have a new face inside of that position. We're gonna have to figure out a way to come up to those understandings and make sure we meet at the same expectation, so.
Because it looks like as it stands now, ours were just for licensing review, so if he's gonna do, like, if they wanna do his own inspection like Ed previously did when. And issuing the NOV for. Lack of permit, then we can do that, or we can make contact. and we can
Yeah,
do that.
either way, it seems like
Whatever.
looking at the information here, Pine Street is over the amount, they're in violation, have not set a permit and are being. Cited for a prerequisite of that permit, which is proper vaccination of these animals. So I think we would all agree at this point in time, they're in pretty. Open failure of this local ordinance, and I think. Further prosecution of that violation is prompted than awaiting them to file out the permit at this time, so. Yeah, we'll figure that out on the back end of who issues what citation, but that's an easy fix.
So that will be the only one then.
Okay.
Should we go to old business then?
Yes.
Yeah, this was Rob Rodriguez.
936 North Fifth.
Yeah, 936 North Fifth Street. Did she ever?
So where that one left off was that she did apply. I had thought that she did end up applying. Ed issued an NOV for her and then she did submit an application.
Yeah, because
Which
my
we
understanding,
approved.
yeah, she was just having an issue getting everything up to date on vaccines, but I
Right.
believe that got satisfied.
The last note I had for her was that hers was approved.
Granted, at least at that time,
Right.
so. Yeah, so I do believe that one was approved.
Yeah. She should have that.
Yeah, do you have any record of that approval, Michelle? No? Okay,
No,
all right, then we'll find a way to make sure that our
Yeah.
new replacement for Ed is aware of all those standings, and then we'll get on the same page here, because unfortunately, at this point anyway, would be time most likely to reapply for this permit. And the same, I think we'll all agree, the same prerequisites stand firm, of which rabies vaccines are required for all the animals for that to be satisfied. So we'll probably just call it a repeat of that process and see where we stand. So what we'll do is we'll start action on our end to just follow up with that as well.
okay.
Goody. It's a peach.
She is a peach. All right.
What's next? What's the next one?
This one's gonna be 236 South 18th Street.
That one, it was chickens. They have been removed at this time. The coop remains. The coop has not been approved by zoning, so I'm expecting the chickens to return in the spring.
Okay, yeah, at this time, we haven't gotten any more reports of chickens at
Mhm.
that property. But again, like you just stated, it's the winter time. So, yeah, I don't know what authority zoning would have for that removal. I would imagine their authority will far supersede ours for the requirement of a removal of the structure. Which one? This one?
I'm just looking them up this one.
I printed everything we had. Oh, this one. Oh, next one, that one. All right,
These are all from the end.
Yeah. do we have any update? What's it looking like?
This
over there
one's
with
for
that?
1043 Chestnut Street. We had confirmed chickens were removed. The end of December of last year.
Oh, yeah, we haven't got any repeat calls looking at our call log concerning that or any incidents with chickens on that property since.
Awesome.
Now, 528 South 14th, a doozy, and I know that Ed had a lot of authority on this one, in which we weren't too happy with this individual at this property and how he was housing the amount of dogs that he did. Since that point in time, I know that there was an incident where we were called to assist the county sheriff's department at that house. However, when we responded, the sheriff since cleared out, canceled that request, and we got no information as to why they wanted us there. So we were left a little bit in the dark, but we've never gotten a call up there. And I do know that if I remember correctly, that at least Ed had an NOV of some sort against this individual or some type of action against them. But I'm not sure where that would
I believe
stand.
their issue was, because this kind of ended with. Our department forwarding it over to zoning because he was building kennels in the backyard without proper permitting. For the dogs, so on our end. Looks like it was closed out after we confirmed vet care and dog licenses for the dogs this year. But we haven't had any interaction with him since January of this year. And I wanna say he was under the limit at the time, now he was breeding, so. He had a litter, he may have been over, but at the time he was under the limit. 1, 2, 3. I think. So unless you have anything else for that, on our end, it was just said it was forwarded to codes and zoning.
Okay, I'll follow up with zoning.
Looks like actually this last note, I'm just confirming here. Licenses were provided 1, 2, 3, 4 for 5 canines. Did not get a license for the 6th canine. Not sure if that was still at the property or not, so. I mean, if we follow up on like a zoning front as far as the kenneling goes outside, maybe we can go from there. But we haven't had any other complaints or concerns or anything like that on our end for him. Is that the last one?
There's one more in here, but we don't have a record. I think that's the one that Ed was working on and I never got a follow-up from.
What is that?
It's gonna be a 438 North 9th Street.
Chickens?
Correct.
Hmm.
Hold on, no, it's 936.
Michelle, do you have anything for that one?
If I don't, I'll see if I can find out. I still see Ed. I'll see if I can find out from him what he was working on.
Okay, I do believe
I know
that,
there was this email from. Yeah. About the chickens, that's the only thing that's in here about.
yeah, and if my memory serves right, and I think we'll all agree, it's been quite some time since we've been at these meetings, but I do believe that there was action served on an authoritative basis through Ed's department, which put us at a standby to see what direction
Mhm.
that would go and how we could supplement it so we wouldn't be crowding that space, and never heard an update on that matter.
Okay,
If I kind of remember Ed saying that he thinks that might have taken care of itself, but again, don't take my
I
word
think
for it.
that's what I was thinking with that one, but
I'm not sure. So I
I don't have
haven't
it
record,
emailed
yeah.
me, so it was a verbal conversation, so I thought that he had confirmed that they were gone, but. Yeah, I mean, worst case, if they don't have any record of it and we have to just like do a drive-by and confirm there's nothing there, that's not a problem.
okay.
That's the last one.
Yeah, that's the last follow-up case right there. So then we have my everlasting redefinitions of how to insert for cats. And before I circle back on that, because I have drafted up a few things that I want to send over to you, Michelle, but there's one thing that I don't want to, what I'll do is I'll wait for new business to circle back on that, because I think there might be some new business which may change that direction that I would like to suggest,
Okay,
if I may.
and I have nothing new on the zoning ordinance amendment. We did get, the city has a new zoning officer. I've not had a chance to meet with him yet and find out where this amendment is, or if he even realizes that it was in process.
Okay.
So I'll follow up on that.
Like, can we start new business then?
Mhm.
Okay.
Sure, let's jump into it. So we have 1029 Spring Street, and 1029 Spring Street is also going to explain that dot right down below that. So this individual essentially, he's been on our radar for quite some time. He has, what would you say, about 30? We'll just, it's hard to tell at this point in time, but we believe at least 30 rabbits on his property, mostly outdoors. And essentially the loophole that is created, and it's more by the lack thereof of definitions or kind of legal coverage, is these 30 rabbits or so constantly get off his property and roam free I would say they cause more of a nuisance than any kind of public health issue at this point, but still a nuisance nonetheless. And due to the way the local ordinances, in conjunction with the state laws, are written, there is no violation of any law, as rabbits aren't defined as ones that need confinement and control. There is no limitations to the amount of rabbits one can own, because by the definitions of exotic animal, this is an animal that I think can be articulated as commonly found at a pet store, so now exempt of the definitions of exotic, native wildlife, etc. And it creates an issue in which now we have this loophole where an individual's not really violating any ordinance or law. We are working on him to make a plan about removing those animals from his property, but I think this is a great case study, so to speak, of over where certain gray areas can exist that are still animal related problems that aren't defined by ordinance or law. To circle back to the regulations of cats, it made me also think about other ordinances or instances in which there are those kind of quote loopholes. And I think one that we'll all remember is when the water buffalo were running through the city. There is another issue in which neither local ordinance nor state law really define any kind of authoritative reprimand for such an act. And what I think should at least be considered is reviewing certain language that we use in our laws and certain laws that maybe we do not have. And one of the instances that come to my mind is we have an ordinance that limits individuals to more than 6 cats or dogs. I feel that I think we'd all agree that we don't want an individual with more than, 7 or more parakeets flying around, or 7 or more other animals like rabbits. We don't necessarily want 7 or more rabbits. And I do think that it should be considered that we change the language from 7 or more cats or dogs. I think that it should be 7 or more animals. I also think that, what's that? Is it 6 or more? Okay, excuse me. I also think that when we have dogs at large, which is already a statute covered by the state, I think it would be prompt to say maybe consider animals at large. Because I think we deal with more of an issue of people's, poultry running at large, which again, they won't admit to, but rabbits running at large, things of that nature. I will say going that loose could create arguments that are a little more loose. But again, we don't have any language that legalized water buffalo running through our street owned by an individual on the border. So I do think that considering the language and its limitations may be prudent on making a little more of, I should say, a wider net of authority to hold people accountable for their lack of control or authority of their animals. I think also that can help us with the instances of individuals doing what they do with cats and creating basically rescues in our backyard, over making it a more blanketed term over, we don't want you to be an establishment, we're not going to consider you one, you're going to be treated as any citizen, expected to do the same thing if you're taking in animals, taking in birds, pigeons, rats, any kind of creature outside, placing them in your animal and in your house and exceeding a certain limit. So I would like to consider, at least have that conversation or that thought process over what the vitality of doing such a task would be, and what everybody's thoughts would be in doing such a task and its benefit to the city itself and its residents.
Igor, do you have any comments? Igor's one of the city's legal team. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yes, okay. If you guys want to send us the proposed ordinance, if you would have a proposal, I'll be happy to take a look at that, and we'll take it from there. But as of now, I don't really have a suggestion. Just I'll be happy to take a look at the current ordinance and any suggestions to amending it, and respond with something constructive.
Thank you.
I did have something. I had a thought. Sorry, I was muted and I didn't realize it. It's kind of a deconstructed thought, so just throwing it out there. I know that one of the issues with the rabbits and stuff is the fact that they are at large, and a lot of the problem is the fact that they are going on other people's property and they're reproducing. So I do think the limit there. However, I know that, like, I don't know if it makes sense to have it more stringent for animals that are kept outdoors, because animals that are kept outdoors do go to neighbors, and that's a lot of the problem that we have. So just adding that 2 cents in there. Hayden, you're muted if you're talking.
Thank you. Just all right. So I'll say that the thing outside as well is, like, let's take a dog, right? So if you have a dog, there's certain requirements that you have, including controlling your animal at a state level and providing and housing to that degree. I think that the biggest issue in doing this that would need the most consideration is if you own a cat and your cat goes outside. I think we'll all agree, those who own cats, the expectation of a cat to a degree is that the cat will go and mind its own business, and typically its lack of regulation make it very easy for a cat to do such acts. And really, anybody who owns a cat that goes indoor outdoor knows that controlling a cat necessarily is not that easy. However, I do think that, again, with the consideration of doing something like this, that there are validity to an owned cat. There is a difference between an owned cat and an established duty of care of maintaining cats that may have no home, in my opinion. But with an owned cat, if your cat crosses the property, say your yard, Anna, and then destroys your property, there should be a law that ties me as responsible for the actions of that cat as the owner of the animal. But I do think there should be distinguishations, and we can go over this, or a distinguishing difference between those who are saying, if I feed my neighbor's cat, I should not be responsible for the whereabouts of that neighbor's cat because I truly don't own it. So again, I do think that, if animals are allowed outside, you should have responsibility to it. But I do agree that there needs to be some parameters over the reality of certain species. That said, where we stand now, it is completely legal for water buffalo owned by a human being to run through the streets and cause chaos. And I think that at least sets enough of a red alarm to say, hey, maybe we should find a way to redefine that, but let's not pigeonhole ourselves and just say water buffalo are not allowed to run down the street. So when it turns into goats, we're doing the same thing. That was all my thought process on that.
No, and I agree. And that the only point I was making is the ones that are outside and stuff, whether it be cats, water buffalo, or rabbits, I think there does need to be more definition in our laws.
Okay.
Rather than it just being limited to cats and dogs, it should be
Correct.
all species.
Especially if we're allowing people to keep, say, a monitor lizard through a permit, they should be responsible for making sure it's not running around the school like it, we had that individual in the past as well. So I can draft some
Forbid we
things
get a
up.
crocodile.
Yeah, let's not. It's not funny.
We've had
So
them.
I can draft things up, and then I can let you, Michelle, know, and I'll send it to the board, but also for Igor's review over there as like an amendment to such, and see what everybody's thoughts are on, at least from how my brain works and what I would think would, from our authoritative aspect, would be the most beneficial from what we see. But I do think at least that needs some consideration to a degree, because I think we have good laws. I just think we need to make them a little more comprehensive and modernize them to kind of today's population and standards.
So I'm gonna throw this out there because every time we talk about limiting the number of animals, the gerbils, mice, people come out, the fish. So when we're doing when we're crafting that language, we're going to have to be, which is why we settled the last time on only dogs and cats. So you can't be overly broad, or else there has to be some way in the language to exempt things in aquariums, or, you know, there has to be some
Mhm.
kind of limit on that, because not all animals can roam free. And if I have, you know, an aquarium full of fish, I'm not the same as the man with all the outdoor rabbits, and how many ferrets is okay and gerbils are not. And, you know, it gets into a lot of things then when you start talking about the smaller animals. So that's just something for us all to keep in mind when we start, you know, crafting some of this language.
Agreed, and I think you bring up a very valid point.
And I guess maybe that's what the point that I was making as far as like ones that are traditionally kept inside, like with rabbits. Traditionally, they're kept inside or in an outdoor hutch. They're usually not kept in a backyard to roam freely. So that's, you know, traditionally hamsters, gerbils, fish, they're all usually kept in confined spaces and not allowed free roam. So I don't know if it might be something like, if we could say traditionally kept in, or based on guidelines for care, how they're normally kept and normally kept inside. So I don't know, if a little more research on that, if we can see if there are guidelines on how certain animals are kept and kind of lead the parameters that way. Just an
Now,
idea.
Maybe
Are
you
you
guys can,
talking- Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry, maybe you guys can look at weight. Usually animals traditionally can be defined by weight. Certain animals over a certain weight. Maybe that's one way to look at it, just a suggestion. Obviously rabbits and, you know, they're not very heavy, but categorize it in some way. I mean, I do agree you have to, I mean, you have to be careful. I mean, people can keep birds and fish and hamsters in, and they can be more than six. So we're more worried about any public nuisance or public safety issues.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, most likely when it comes down to limitation of animals itself, I think in my mind, what might be beneficial is a point system.
I was gonna say that.
You assign animals a point, and then depending on the type of animal, you know, say a livestock animal is a 5 point, you know, a fish is a 0 point, and you have a point scale system to that degree. But I will say that I do feel personally that when it comes down to responsibility of control, at least me personally, in my experience, cats are one of the few animals that I feel have a more lackadaisical relationship to control. But I do feel that if you're responsible for your gerbils of not getting out, going into your neighbor's yard and creating an infrastructure underneath their grass. So again, but for I will keep these into consideration, obviously put it in than just doing a simple, let's replace the word dog with the word animal, because I agree, it needs to be much more nuanced. It needs to be also fair, so it's not treating the person with a fish tank in a back room the same as an individual with a house full of cats. And I'll try out some other things and I'll see, because I'm really just curious over what everyone's thoughts are, because I think that, you know, Anna brings a lot of insight to it as well. You know, everyone will be able to kind of tweak it the way that they want to, but I'll draft up some things that I think, again, I look for it as an execution side, you know, what's effective for us out there and what we see and what we execute. But again, we're one piece of that pie. So I'll draft things up, but I'm taking notes here because I agree all these things do need to take into consideration to make it a well-rounded and unbiased regulation.
Any questions regarding this? Um, Other matters? Any other matters?
I don't think we have any other cases right now.
Yeah, I don't think we
Do
have any other cases or information on our end.
we want to set up a next meeting date to go over all this?
Off my head, looking at here, I think just based off everything we went off of, a lot of this is gonna be contingent on gaining more information on current status of things that are currently standing. So I would think, at least as of right now, so we don't put any unrealistic constrained dates on anything. Let's see what we can do with Michelle getting the updates through zoning. Let's see what I can do through getting some of those definitions out. And then in the meantime as well, more than likely, we will get a buildup of other permit related oversight that will be needed. And then we'll just kind of see in that time space in the next couple of weeks where we may stand with that, and make that call in real time would be my suggestion.
Okay, that makes sense.
Just for my information though, as I'm planning, is there a day of the week, a time of the day that everyone kind of prefers so I can kind of put my arms around that, or just like I've been doing?
Well, our department every day is Monday, so you tell
Mine
us if
too.
to show up. No, every day is Monday. You can call us on a Sunday. We'll be here. So any day you want, we'll make it, Michelle.
I try not to work weekends.
Smart woman.
Okay. Then I will just send a poll out.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. That was nice.
For right now and stuff, Tuesday works very well for me. And my other thought is, I'm just thinking maybe we should look like, maybe follow up in like April at the latest, because I think with some of the stuff, like with the rabbit loophole and everything, before things get too out of control there, I think we have to figure something out with that.
Before it gets too warm and they come back outside. Yeah, yeah. So maybe Michelle will poll for April at some point, see what works for everybody.
I will do that. I'll do it closer to time though. I mean, it's hard in December to know what we're all doing in April, so.
If there's nothing else, I have a motion to adjourn. Is that you, Hayden?
The second, you can second. Somebody seconds or either me or Savannah seconds it.
So it sounds like we're second, third, and fourthing it.
There we go.
Yeah.
More seconds
Everyone
for Thanksgiving dinner. All right, guys.
Happy holidays.
Thank you
You
so
too.
much. Have a very
Bye-bye.
merry, happy holiday season. Be safe.
Bye-bye.